So this slide really, I just wanted to address this question of whether you're sitting the exam for the first time or you're resitting. Now, to people who are sitting the exam for the first time, I would say it's really worth going the extra mile and making sure you do put in the correct preparation for it, because it's going to save you a lot of time and effort in the long run if you do put that work in now. So you have the opportunity now, if you're in year 11, year 10, to make sure that you develop your skills as much as possible and to give yourself the best chance of succeeding at the first time of asking and getting a really good grade that you're happy with. For people who are resitting the exam, the main thing I would say is just turning up to the exam again and doing it again 6 months or a year later does not necessarily mean you're going to do any better. There's no reason why just being a year older is necessarily going to improve your level of English language communication skills. So what we've really got to take a look at if you're a resit student is, what did you perhaps not do so well last time? So you can look back at those 10 reasons for failing that I've just been through and try and think about, do any of those really apply to me? Is my grammar weak? Are my writing skills weak? And maybe select 2 or 3 of those that you're really going to focus in on to try to boost up your grade the next time round. And the other thing I would say is, if you are resitting, make sure that you don't just go through the same process as you did last time. You need to probably make some kind of a change, whether that's reading more, going to some extra classes, working with a tutor. You're going to need to start to make some changes in order to develop your skills. So that was just a note for both first-time candidates and also resit candidates as well. Okay, so here we have a slide which relates to the core skills that you're going to need to make sure that you do reasonably well in this exam. And we're going to go through these now. What I'd like you to do is just give yourself a mark out of 10 in each of these areas. So a 0 being you have absolutely no skill whatsoever, a 10 being you have the maximum amount of skill possible, there's no way you could improve, and a 5 being you have kind of some type of level but there's definitely room for some improvement. So let's just go through these. First off, good grammar. So grammar is pretty much one of the fundamentals. So just give yourself a mark out of 10 for your current level of grammar. Next up is fluid writing. So fluidity really means you're able to write a decent amount, you're able to write reasonably quickly, you're not spending 10 minutes just trying to write one sentence, you can get some material down. Some people do have some issues with fluidity in writing, and that's something that can be addressed with practice. So just give yourself, again, a mark out of 10 on your fluidity of writing. Okay, so next up is having a reasonable vocabulary. So I put reasonable here. If you are really shooting for a top grade, you're going to want more than a reasonable vocabulary. You're going to want an extensive vocabulary. But as we're kind of focused more on passing the exam in this video, I'm just going to say a reasonable vocabulary there. So this is something that you would develop over time through having a solid reading habit, but also through basically noting down vocab as it comes up, both in class and in your day-to-day life. So there's really no excuse in the modern world for having a poor vocabulary, because you have a dictionary at your fingertips at all times. You can look up words on Google, on your phone, at any time of day. And so all you need to do is just make a note of any new vocab that comes up, and over time you're going to develop quite an extensive list of new vocab it's definitely going to come in helpful and handy as you progress towards the exam and as you sit the exam. Okay, so next up here is processing information. This basically relates to your ability to understand a piece of text. So some students, as they actually sit the exam, find it's really difficult for them to even fully understand what's going on in the text. They feel the bits they're missing and they're not exactly 100% sure of what's going on in the text. So this is something that you do develop with time, your ability to process the information, process the text, understand it, make sense of it. So give yourself a mark out of 10, again on your ability to process information. Next up is quotation, your ability to... Okay, so the fifth point here is quotation. It's just specifically providing evidence, backing up your points with a solid quote, and then analyzing that quotation. So just give yourself a mark out of 10 on your ability to do that effectively and accurately. There is a process for that, and we're going to look at that in a future video, but at the moment just give yourself a mark out of 10 there. That is an important skill, quoting. Next up, effective planning. So hopefully you will be doing some type of a plan for most of the written work that you do, but you might ask yourself, how effective is this plan in actually generating good ideas and helping me to put together a good answer? And I have a certain type of planning process that I would advocate. So just ask yourself, how effective is my planning, and give yourself a mark out of 10 for that one. Okay, so next up are writing skills. As I mentioned on the previous slide, writing skills are absolutely central to succeeding on this paper. So you're going to need to have really solid writing skills, both creative writing skills and also analytical writing skills. But we can we'll lump those in together just for the purposes of this assessment. So again, give yourself a mark out of 10 on your writing skills. I would expect probably no one, unless they were completely delusional, would give themselves a 10 out of 10 on their writing skills at GCSE level. Next up is exam technique. I did mention that before. Give yourself a mark out of 10 on your exam technique and your current exam technique. Next up is content and form, your ability to analyze content and form. So just quickly to give you a bit of explanation on these two terms. Content is either the information contained in an article or the main story, the storyline. And the form is how those things are communicated. It's mainly things like language, could also be structure, and also certain visual elements as well if you're looking at an article. So content and form. Are you able to differentiate those two things, and are you able to identify when you should be talking about content and when you should be focusing more on form in your analytical work? This may be some new terminology for you, so just give yourself a mark out of 10 there on this one. Don't worry if it's a low mark at this point, we're going to do more on this as we go forward. Lastly is the suggestions of language. So language has a literal meaning, and then it also has associations and suggestions as well. And you need to be skilled in seeing what those suggestions and what those associations are, because a good candidate is able to see not only the literal level of language, they'll also be able to see what is suggested, what type of atmosphere is being created by this language, and they're able to comment on that. So give yourself a mark out of 10 there on that particular question. Okay, so give yourself a mark out of 10 on that one. Okay, so that exercise really was just to get you to start thinking about the skills that you're going to need, the potential areas that you may have been weak on or you may currently be weak on, and we're trying to develop these skills and kind of move away from some of the points that may be dragging you down. So we're going towards the good stuff and we're trying to move away from the bad stuff. In relation to this exercise, giving yourself a mark out of 10, it's good that you would start to actually be aware of the level that you're on and start to think about how you are developing in each of these different areas. What I would say though is often students may not be entirely accurate in their own assessment of their skill level, and not necessarily because they're trying to be delusional, they're trying to give themselves too much credit or being too harsh on themselves. It's just maybe they're just not able to assess themselves objectively enough. So it's also worth getting feedback from either a teacher or a tutor or someone with an appropriate skill level on how they think your work is looking in relation to these different areas. Okay, so this second introductory video was really just to give you more of an overview of the problems you can encounter with this exam, the skill set that you're trying to develop, and just kind of priming you for the course that we're actually going to begin looking at in the next video. So I'll see you in there.